My name is Sanji, and this is a story that my mom would tell me and my brother over the years when she wanted us to remember that no matter how hard things get or whatever the struggle is, there's always a lesson to be learned. So this is a story about when my mom, Rosa May, she was raised in the South in Louisiana in a little town called Lake Charles, Louisiana. And one day she was about 7 or 8, and her mom sent her to the ice cream shop to get some ice cream. So she gets there, and there's like 3 people in front of her, and she waits, and then it's her turn. And so she gets to the counter, and the man at the counter just completely ignores her. So, this was in the time when there was still segregation in the South, and a lot of places were coloreds only, whites only, as well as, you would have to get served at the back of the store. So she's next, and she's ignored. And so at first she, when you're 8, you forget, it's interesting, but you forget you're a kid. So she waited, and then she says like an aha moment where she realizes, oh, I'm not being served because I'm colored. So she waits, and she thinks about leaving, but she changes her mind. She waits. A few more customers come. A white family comes, a few more other white customers come, and of course the man waits on all of them first. So she's, getting more and more upset. But she says as she's waiting, she remembers a story about a kid in her school who was a really, really great artist. And he had won a contest, an art contest. I'm not sure if the city had put it on or if the school system had put it on, but he had won the contest. So he shows up for this contest, to be awarded the winner. And they realize he's colored. And they say, oh, no, there's been a mistake. And so they told this little boy he was not the winner, even though, he had been notified, I'm assuming by mail or perhaps phone, that he was the winner. So my mom, as she's waiting for her ice cream to be served, she remembers this kid's story, and she's like, oh my gosh, sometimes it's easy to hear about yucky things and then kind of distance yourself from the experience or the reality. But when it happens to you, you're like, oh, wow, this actually happens, and because it's happening to me. And so, it kind of hits a little different. So she stands there for, a little while longer. And finally, I guess the man, for whatever reason, decides, hey, what do you want? So he says that to my mom, what do you want? And she goes ahead and she orders her ice cream, and she's walking home, and she's very upset, and she's angry, and she's sad, and she's mad, and she said she's feeling all these emotions, and the ice cream's like running down her face and down her hands, and she's like, oh, I can't wait to go tell my mom what happened to me. And so she gets home, and her mom is sitting on the porch, and she tells her mom what happened. She was passed over, and all because she was colored and not white, and she was more and more angry. But she notices that her mom is just listening, not jumping in. She just lets her talk. And when she finishes, she's expecting her mother to say, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you. But my mom says her mother asked her, did you get your ice cream? And so she looks at her mom, and she's holding the ice cream, and she's like, yes, I got my ice cream. But, I was passed over, and I had to wait, and, it was terrible, all because of my skin color. And isn't that awful? And again, her mother says, did you get your ice cream? And she's like, yes. But she's in her mind, in her 8-year-old mind, she's like, what is wrong with my mother? Like, why is she not understanding? Where is the shared empathy or vexation or outrage? of this particular thing that happened to her daughter. So my mom is just standing there, now upset with her own mother. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I had a terrible experience and now you're not, understanding my terrible experience. And she says, her mom looks at her and says, hey, Rosa Mae, I want you to know in life, sometimes you don't get what you want. Sometimes you're going to have struggle. Sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes things will come easy, but sometimes they won't. So you have to decide if those things you've decided that you want come with struggle or strife. You have to decide if you really want those things. And if you do, if you decide that what you want is going to entail some struggle, some strife, just remember to ask yourself, did you get your ice cream though? So at the end of the day, if you still had struggle and strife, as long as the outcome is you getting your ice cream, your bonus, what trumps everything, all of it, is that you ended up getting what you set out to get. And in this case, it was your ice cream. And so my mom is, I don't know what happened that evening or how much her and my grandmother, her mother, spoke about it. But I know that my mom would bring this story up when my brother and I were going through whatever we were as kids growing up. And she told us this story. And so over the years, we just had this saying in our family, if we're struggling or if something's a little tougher, we kind of sometimes cut in and say, did you get your ice cream? And normally if you did get your ice cream, and your ice cream can be anything, a job you want, a car you want, an apartment you want, anything that you have worked for, and it kind of brings you back to reality to kind of not erase the struggle, but at the end of it all, if you did get your ice cream, it makes it all worth it. So that's the story my mom told us over the years. And my mom passed away in 2020. So it hits home a little more these days. Sometimes when my brother and I are talking, and even now with my son, sometimes he'll say, oh, Mom, but you know what? I got my ice cream. So I'm passing this story down. My intent is that this story is maybe encouraging to others who may be struggling with whatever they're struggling with. Just remember, at the end of the day, if you get your ice cream, it's pretty sweet.